Studio. We're going to go a little bit long, so we're going to go to the top of the hour, and we'll rejoin with Neil Bortz coming up after the top of the hour, so we have some more time to talk with Brian Miller in regards to the Jose Garania story. Now, I want to get back to this real quick just to sort of reestablish this. I hadn't talked about this on the air yet, simply because in reading the stories and the details that were coming out, I hadn't formed a basis of opinion either way in regards to Jose Garania, in regards to the SWAT officers and the law enforcement officers involved in all of this. What prompted me to bring this up on the air was the email that you had sent out from the Pima County GOP. We are all Jose Garania. And again, before the break, when we were talking, you know, you would ask me well, you know, let me go ahead. I know you want to comment, so let's go ahead and let you comment. No? You want me to keep going? Again, in here, I do understand. You say, while an investigation is still underway to determine the facts immediately surrounding the killing, it is my hope this tragic event will lead to a renewed discussion of policies that routinely led to the heavily armed and militarized local police invading homes, and a renewed interest in the civil liberties codified in our Bill of Rights. Here, and again, getting back to my main issue here, is that I understand that you said you want to wait for the facts to be determined surrounding the killing in this regard. My problem with it is, first off, it came from the Pima County GOP in the official sort of letterhead, if you will. Okay. You know, is this the stance of the GOP? And let's ask you this first. Was this the stance of the GOP, and do you still feel justified, or how do you justify sending this out, asking people to come to this Memorial Day nonpartisan, politically unaffiliated ceremony in memoriam of a fellow citizen? How do you justify using the Pima County GOP mass email to invite people to this event?
Because I believe in the rule of law and in the constitutional protections that are codified in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution at large, because I believe we have a right to be free from oppression as a result of our government, and I think that the vast majority of Republicans would agree with me on that. Now, it's fine. Obviously, there's a lot of disagreement about whether or not this was, but that is why I say let's have a renewed discussion of this.
Sure.
Now, to say that it's inappropriate when a very significant nationally broadcast event took place in your community, and there's going to be a significant acknowledgement of it, to say that the chairman of the local Pima County Republican Party shouldn't let everybody know about it, I don't even understand that logic, John. I got to tell you, and it was absolutely nonpartisan, politically unaffiliated. I'm letting my rank and file, the people that associate with Pima GOP or that get the email, know that this event is going on. And believe me, it was across the spectrum here.
Yeah, but Brian, I know you, and I consider you a friend. I know you're smarter than this. How can you send this out on GOP letterhead, if you will, to the GOP email list, and not think that people aren't going to consider this to be political? Of course it's political. I mean, you're sending it out. I mean, this could come from your private account or a Facebook event. It's fine. But this is the Pima County GOP mass email list. And again, you are jumping off of an event that we don't know all the facts over yet to start a discussion on what you believe is the routinely led, heavily armed, militarized police invading private homes. That may very well be an issue, but that may not have been a facet in this event at all, because we don't know all the details yet. And again, like what happened January 8th, it's getting people not just involved in the discussion, but it's getting people to the point where they are rushing to a conclusion. And there are those that are now demonizing our law enforcement, saying they are militarized. And there's other people jumping on board with this. And to me, it's become a negative. And when you use terms like militarization, all you're doing is providing fodder for those individuals on the left who would be more than happy to use that against the GOP and the right. You know, while individuals like myself call out Pima County Sheriff Clarence Dupnick for making ridiculous statements based off of his opinion of what he thought was the motivation of Jared Lofter without having any facts, to me this is the same thing. You're asking people to have a discussion over an issue that may or may not have anything to do with what took place on May 5th.
John, this email it stands on its own. It was simply, it's a message to let everyone know that there is this memoriam, and I hope that we can talk about this significant policy aspect. And you say that it's making people demonize local law enforcement. I don't see it. Number one,
I had caller after caller this morning. I got emails this morning.
Well, number one, this email doesn't demonize any local law enforcement. Nothing I've said demonizes local law enforcement. I have consistently said that we need to talk about the policies that put local law enforcement, heavily armed, in this example, in the doorway of a private man, of a private citizen, and he has a family inside, and he doesn't, by all accounts, or by at least legitimate accounts, he did not know what was going on. Even if you look at the basic fact that the man was a two-term, and this has nothing, I'm not using his status as a veteran. He has no more or less legal rights because he's a veteran, but this is a poignant point in this case, is that the man was a two-term combat Marine. The man knew how to use a rifle. He understood that as he brought it up, he's going to take the safety off once he's verified that it's a valid target. Now, when from the door being opened till the first shots being fired, admittedly by law enforcement, there is 6.5 seconds. That means Jose Varela hasn't determined. He has two options. He has two options. One, it's bad guys, or two, it's the police. So he has to make a determination. What do the police have to determine? The police, all they have to do is see a gun and they can shoot. Who is the deck stacked against in this scenario? And I'm asking you, John Justice, here on your show, if this happens to you, and we know it can because we have evidence of detailed botched SWAT raids all the time, wrong house, wrong, it can happen. You at your house, you get woken up, you're confused, your wife said there's armed gunmen at the door, banging on the door. What if it's the case that you're confused, what do you do?
This wouldn't be the case. Because there wouldn't be a 20-month investigation of
John,
law enforcement with
John,
you.
You're saying they couldn't accidentally show up at your house. You're saying that everything that they investigate is automatically legitimate. It hasn't been tried in a court of law.
You could what if this all day long.
Yes, and you know what?
Isn't there?
Yeah, I think Vanessa Moreno would wish that the tactics used
emotions are getting the better of people.
That the tactics used would have been what if.
Look. Of course she would have. She's his wife. Right?
I would wish the tactics
of course she would. He was the father of her kids. But isn't there just as likely a scenario where the SWAT showed up at the door, they were knocking, said SWAT is here, he freaked out, right? Wanted to defend himself, brought the gun up, in the mass confusion of just waking up, didn't unlock the safety and didn't get a shot off, and police were defending themselves. Isn't there just as likely a scenario? Were you there?
It is
I wasn't there and you weren't there. It's all speculation.
You're exactly right, John.
Pure speculation.
Absolutely, and that's why I said those facts don't matter. You want to talk about, those facts don't matter in the overarching thing.
Right.
You want to talk about that? That is a legitimate question.
Well, I didn't want to talk about it. You brought it up. You started talking about the facts of the case.
No, John, over and over I've said the immediate facts surrounding the shooting are not relevant to the larger issue of the policy which put that SWAT team in the position to put Jose Larena in a position.
But you don't know the reason why the SWAT was at the door. Were you a part of the investigation? Do you know every aspect and the reason why the search warrant was there? Were you there when the SWAT was given their orders to go to the front door?
My argument is that it doesn't. My argument is that it doesn't matter.
It absolutely matters when you are trying to go and talk about the routinely led, heavily armed militarization, local police invading private homes. It absolutely matters if you don't know the facts and details as to why law enforcement was there with that amount of force on May 5th in this case. Okay, you're using your opinion and conjecture to go and spark a conversation about a different issue when you don't have all the facts of the main issue that you're focused to. It's exactly the same thing that Pima County Sheriff Clarence Dupnick did. He had no basis of fact to blame who he blamed for Jared Loughner's shooting, and it sparked all these ridiculous civility claims of this National Institute of Civility and these calls for everybody to act more civilly, and you're aware of all this. This is exactly what's happening in this case.
I don't see how it can be any more different than what I did from what Clarence Dupnick did. I'm not ascribing motivations. I'm not blaming any one person. I'm blaming the policy. I don't know how else I can say that other than the fact that the most dangerous possible time, place, and method was used to serve this search warrant, and for God's sake, I wish it had been what if, because then we could have a public trial probably of this man, and you know, then we wouldn't.
Well, listen, what happens? What happens if the investigation comes out and we get the details of what the search warrant was and why the records were closed, and we find out that Jose Garenia was a bad dude? I'm just saying, what happens? You put
so what? My answer is so what? John?
You put the Pima County GOP in a position where they're going to look really bad and look really stupid over this.
No, I've only put them in a position if to the people who cannot differentiate between the concept of innocent until proven guilty, between that and innocent until the cops show up with overwhelming force and we bust in your home and you are put in the position of trying to defend your family. Because I'm telling you, if
you don't know if he was guilty or innocent though.
No, actually, I do. I do know he's innocent because he's never tried in a court of law.
Well, no, there's a difference between that happening in court and that happening on the streets when police go knocking on the door with a search warrant and there's a gun staring them down and they know there's a threat there and they're there to defend themselves.
I'm not saying the gun wasn't staring them down, but we do know that he didn't shoot and they did.
So it was inappropriate conduct no matter what. The facts don't matter in the case.
No, no, the facts do matter for any disciplinary action that might be levied against the Pima County Sheriff's Office. Obviously, the facts matter there. The overarching policy, I'll say it one more time, the overarching policy which has legalized, which makes it okay legally, in my opinion, and I would argue, though not morally, though not right, it makes it legal for a militarized police force in our country to show up with quick knocks, bang on the door,
driving me nuts, man.
Not give it.
Why do you got to use this militarized? You're talking about members of our law enforcement from Sarita, Oro Valley, Marana, and the Sheriff's Department who are under the banner of SWAT for this particular case. Why go and inflame the situation by keep calling it militarized over and over again? You're doing the same thing the tactic on the left does all the time.
Because they are, and it's a problem.
It's unfortunate, man. You're making our local law enforcement look bad.
No.
I'm really disappointed.
Nope, never.
How do you justify using the Pima GOP for this?
Nope, never pointed the finger at local law enforcement.
Doesn't matter. You're in a position, Ryan, of leadership.
And I'll tell you what.
This is not
if there was ever a time to stand up and be counted, it's this. In the face of a violent and oppressive government who values enforcement over the protection and service of the population.
So what should people do? What needs to happen here?
What needs to happen here? We, as citizens, we need to examine the policies. We need to examine our concept, our paradigm of what we want from local law enforcement. How much leeway do we have? Do we want these quick knock warrants? Do we want no knock warrants? Do we want militarized police? Do we want to give them the ability to come into anyone's house, even with a warrant, when there are obviously, we could come up with 10 just sitting here, different ways, more peaceful ways, where you're not going to put innocent civilians at risk.
You're not law enforcement. Neither am I.
So what?
You know what? No, I don't. Because if there's a guy next door to me that's planning on bombing the local mall and is making bombs, I want to make sure the SWAT has the authority to go and do what they need to do to take the guy out.
I didn't say get rid of SWAT.
No, I know. I understand that. But again, this circumstance, you don't know. Why? You don't know why they went there. You don't know the full extent of the investigation. You don't know what Jose Garenia was involved in.